Is passive investing finally broken? For decades, it wasn't just a strategy, it was the commandment of personal finance. The gospel preached by John Bogle and Warren Buffett: buy a low-cost index fund, hold it forever, and let compounding do its magic. No timing, no guessing, no stress. Just own the market and let capitalism reward patience. It was the perfect system. Low cost, automatic, nearly foolproof. A plan that turned average workers into millionaires and gave people hope that they didn't need a Wall Street degree to retire rich. But lately, that faith has been tested like never before. Because what happens when the system that everyone believes in starts to look fragile? When the charts look euphoric, the news feels chaotic, and the so-called safe strategy starts to feel like walking on a cliff edge, millions of investors are starting to wonder if the old wisdom still applies. The tone of the conversation has shifted. What was once a quiet conviction has turned into a crisis of faith. You can feel it in the air. From Reddit boards to Bloomberg, from coffee table conversations to YouTube comments, the same question keeps echoing. Has passive investing lost its edge? What if the thing we all trusted, the S&P 500, the ultimate set-it-and-forget-it vehicle, isn't as stable as it seems? What if Michael Burry is right again? What if the rise of trillion-dollar tech giants has made the index more vulnerable than ever before? What if the average 10% return, the foundation of nearly every retirement plan, is nothing more than a relic of a golden age that's gone for good? The fear feels real because it is real. The world has changed, interest rates are rising, inflation refuses to die, wars are spreading, globalization is unraveling. Every day, analysts warn of new risks, systemic, structural, existential. And through it all, passive investors are sitting there, holding, trusting, waiting. But should they? By the end, you'll have your answer, and it may surprise you. Let's start with the loudest argument of all, that the S&P 500 isn't diversified anymore. It's a tech bubble wearing an index mask. Critics say that what used to be a balanced portfolio of America's top 500 companies has quietly turned into a single dangerous bet on Silicon Valley. Because of how the index works, weighted by market capitalization, the biggest companies dominate the performance. And right now, a handful of them are carrying the whole market. Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, Amazon, Alphabet, Meta, Tesla. Combined, these companies make up roughly 40% of the S&P 500's total value. That's the highest level of concentration in modern history. This means every dollar you invest in the S&P 500 gives nearly half your money to a handful of companies. Your 401k isn't spread across 500 firms. It's effectively a tech-heavy growth fund with hundreds of tiny, irrelevant side holdings. And because index funds buy automatically without considering valuation, every new wave of passive inflows pushes these giants even higher. It's a feedback loop that critics argue mirrors the late 1990s dot-com bubble. The higher they go, the more people buy, and the more distorted the market becomes. The fear is simple. If these few titans stumble, the entire index could crash. And when the index falls, retirement dreams fall with it. Yes, concentration is real, but it's not new. The S&P 500 has always been dominated by a small group of leaders. In the 1980s, it was IBM, Exxon, and GE. In the 1970s, AT&T ruled the index. In every era, the winners rise to the top, dominate for a while, and then fade away. The index doesn't need you to guess the next winner. It automatically replaces losers with new champions. That's the beauty of it. It evolves. Second, this isn't a bubble built on air like in 2000. Back then, companies with zero profits and absurd business models reached billion-dollar valuations on hype alone. Today's giants are different. They print money. Apple alone generates more free cash flow than most countries' GDP. Microsoft and Nvidia are redefining entire industries. Their valuations may be high, but they're backed by record-breaking profits and global dominance. Third, for long-term investors, concentration actually creates opportunity. A pullback in mega-cap tech doesn't destroy your future, it turbocharges it. Every time those stocks drop, your dollar-cost average contributions buy more at cheaper prices. Volatility isn't a bug, it's the engine of compounding. The systemic risk fear, the big short argument. This one's scarier because it's philosophical. Michael Burry, famous for calling the 2008 crash, argues that passive investing itself has become the new bubble. His claim, trillions of dollars are flowing blindly into index funds, distorting prices and breaking the market's natural mechanism, price discovery. Price discovery is the process where active buyers and sellers decide what something is worth. But if everyone just buys without thinking, the argument goes, then prices stop reflecting reality. The market becomes a self-referential illusion. Stocks rise not because they deserve to, but because they're in the index. When everyone eventually sells, there will be no one left to buy. Sounds terrifying. But like most elegant theories, it falls apart under real-world data. Passive funds own a lot of the market's assets, but not much of its activity. More than 80% of daily trading volume still comes from active investors, algorithms, and institutions. They're the ones setting prices. Index funds are passengers on the train, not the conductors. And if passive flows ever do distort prices, active investors immediately pounce on the inefficiencies. The system self-corrects through one simple force: profit. If Apple gets overpriced due to index buying, hedge funds short it. If small caps get too cheap, value investors buy them. The invisible hand still works. Even in crisis moments, passive money proves stabilizing. In March 2020, when COVID chaos struck, it wasn't index investors who panicked. It was the smart money. Active funds pulled billions out of the market, while index investors largely held steady, letting their automatic contributions buy more shares at rock-bottom prices. The result? They recovered faster and stronger. Passive investing didn't create instability, it absorbed it. And that brings up another truth about investing that often gets overlooked. Most investors spend years worrying about returns and risk, but never actually measure how their portfolio performs. They see numbers on their broker's screen, but not the full story: how dividends, currency shifts, and tax drag all shape their real outcome. That's why using a proper tracker, not just your brokerage app, can completely change the way you see your portfolio. Tools like ShareSite reveal your true performance, track every dividend automatically, and make tax time feel like a breeze instead of a battlefield. It's the kind of clarity that helps you stay calm when markets aren't. And if you decide to check it out, my link in the description gives you 4 months free when you sign up for the annual plan. The interest rate headwind, TINA, is dead. For years, there is no alternative TINA, was the mantra. With near zero interest rates, bonds were garbage, savings accounts paid nothing, and stocks were the only logical choice. That tailwind fueled one of the longest bull markets in history. But now, that world is gone. Rates are up, inflation is sticky. Bonds yield 5%. For the first time in over a decade, there is an alternative. Why risk your savings in the market when you can earn a safe, guaranteed 5%? Critics argue this shift changes everything. Higher rates lower valuations, reduce risk appetite, and make stocks less attractive. It's gravity pulling down on equity prices. Combine that with a slowing economy and high debt, and the case for long-term stock ownership looks weaker than ever. This fear ignores context. Rising rates hurt stocks only when they signal economic weakness. When they rise due to strong growth, like in 2021 to 2023, they reflect a robust economy, not doom. The data is clear. The S&P 500 delivered phenomenal returns during the high-rate 1980s and 1990s. People still poured money into equities despite earning 6% on CDs because corporate profits grew even faster. Stocks thrive in expanding economies, no matter the rate backdrop. And here's the kicker: companies adapt. Firms like Apple, Costco, and Johnson & Johnson have pricing power. They can raise prices without losing customers. Inflation doesn't destroy them, it amplifies their revenue. Over time, strong businesses outpace both inflation and interest rates. That's why equities have beaten every other asset class for a century. The lower future returns squeeze. This one feels personal. For decades, we've been told to expect 10% annual returns, but analysts warn that those days are gone. With valuations high and growth slowing, even giants like Vanguard predict only 4% to 6% average returns over the next decade. If that's true, then the golden age of passive investing might be over. Right? First, forecasts like these have a terrible track record. In 2012, strategists predicted low single-digit returns for the next decade, and the S&P 500 proceeded to more than triple. Why? Because no model can predict human innovation. The market is a machine powered by creativity, not calculators. Second, even if returns do fall, that only strengthens the case for passive investing. In a low-return world, costs matter more. Paying 1% to an active fund manager when returns are 10% is annoying. Paying 1% when returns are 5% is catastrophic. Fees don't shrink with returns, they compound against you. And finally, remember that periods of low growth often set up explosive rebounds. The 2000s were called a lost decade, but anyone who kept dollar cost averaging through it bought cheap shares for 10 years straight. And when the 2010s bull market came, they exploded in value. A low return era isn't the end. It's the setup for the next great cycle. The geopolitical nightmare. The headlines never stop. War in Europe, conflict in the Middle East, rising China-US tensions, trade wars, cyber attacks, elections, debt crises. The global order feels like it's fracturing. The world looks unstable, and investors fear that instability will finally kill long-term market growth. History disagrees. Markets have always climbed a wall of worry. The Cold War, the Cuban Missile Crisis, Vietnam, 9/11, COVID. In every generation, it felt like this time is different, and every generation was wrong. JP Morgan's study of 80 years of market crises found something remarkable. 12 months after a major geopolitical shock, markets were higher 3/4 of the time. Even after events as devastating as Pearl Harbor or the 2008 crash, the market eventually recovered and reached new highs. Why? Because human ingenuity doesn't stop for headlines. Companies innovate, economies rebuild, progress resumes. Selling in fear has always been the worst decision an investor can make. The people who sold after 9/11 or after COVID missed historic rebounds. Fear feels rational, but it's ruinous. The active manager's revenge. This is a stock picker's market. You hear it every time volatility spikes. When the tide goes out, the argument goes, you need a skilled captain. Passive investing works when everything rises, but not when the seas get rough. In 2022, that seemed true. Almost half of active fund managers beat the S&P 500. For the first time in years, the pros looked vindicated. 1 year doesn't erase decades of data. Over the last 20 years, 95% of active managers underperformed the index. And that's just among those who survived. Thousands more performed so poorly they were shut down entirely. Even the winners don't stay winners. The few managers who outperform in one decade almost never do it again in the next. Skill and luck look identical in the short run, but only one survives in the long run, and it's not skill. John Bogle said it best, don't look for the needle in the haystack, just buy the haystack. Passive investing isn't about brilliance, it's about probability. It's not sexy, but it's undefeated. So after all that, what's the verdict? Is passive investing finally broken? No, the data says it's still the most efficient, resilient, and accessible strategy ever created. But something else is broken. The investor. The biggest threat to your portfolio isn't the market, it's your behavior. It's your emotions. It's that moment of panic when the market falls 20% and you hit sell at the exact wrong time. It's abandoning your plan because the headlines scare you. The truth is, passive investing is simple, but never easy. It requires the emotional strength to keep going when every instinct screams to stop. It means buying when everyone else is running for the exits. It means trusting in a process that feels boring, slow, and painful in the short term, but unstoppable in the long term. Time in the market, not timing the market, remains the most powerful principle in finance. Every crash you endure, every correction you survive, makes your portfolio stronger. Volatility isn't a cost, it's the price of admission. Because in the end, markets don't reward fear, they reward endurance. And that's why true wealth isn't built by timing the market, it's built by outlasting it. And that's why the real question isn't whether passive investing still works, it's whether you do.